Chief Futurist at Futurist.com, researcher, keynote speaker, author of Facing Our Futures, Nikolas Badminton, joining us on Canada Now. Nick, this week, let's discuss self-healing metals. I mean, it feels like Terminator 2.
Yeah, it's interesting. When you sent me this link, I'd already been aware, you through the use of nanotechnology, whatever, there'd been like self-healing polymers, the idea that your phone screen could heal itself. Self-healing concrete has been something really important in the world in terms of progress. Yeah. But now the self-healing metals is incredibly interesting, right? This is the idea that you could particularly take, applications where fatigue happens and that you might have to do levels of maintenance and replacement over the years, but actually establish structures that literally heal themselves over the time.
That is incredible. Like, I'm thinking maybe between concrete and between this metal discovery, maybe we never have to, redo a bridge ever again. That sort of, I mean, even NASA has already come calling these scientists who have made this discovery.
Yeah, it's super interesting, right? The one material that really lasts through time is something like wood. One of the oldest buildings in the world is like 1,400 years old. It's a monastery, or it's a home, a very large home in Japan. So wood is this natural ability to ebb and flow and move and shift and change and work with the environment. When we've got these artificial or these ore-based metals or concrete or polymers or whatever, it gets really interesting because now we're actually starting to almost have a level of biomimicry where that does heal. And then we can think about, when we build a bridge or when we build a large building, that could be there potentially for centuries. Yeah. And for me, when you think about sustainability and longevity in terms of the infrastructure we build, I think that's a really important discussion to have around the application of these materials. This could be absolutely game-changing around the world.
Yeah, it could be. So here's what happened. A team of scientists in New Mexico observed a cracked sheet of platinum heal while doing some research on metal fatigue, which happens when metals are exposed to repeated stressors like motions or consistent loads. And there was a crack visible under an electron microscope. Then it was completely gone. The same happened with a piece of copper as well. But the cracks went away at room temperature, and the atoms in the metal just wanted to stick together. Yeah. I wonder how much temperature would have a hand in this.
Well, it's interesting, right? And because we are heading into a warmer world,
yeah,
and extremes in temperature, that's where we have to test all of this and its efficacy in all of these environments, though.
Yeah.
But this is the kind of progress from an industrial perspective that I think the world needs.
Yeah.
And this could play a role in everything from like renewable energy to the, to road systems, to food systems, to where we live and how we sort of thrive as a human race.
It could be another 10 years before the discovery finds applications outside of a lab. So while we get very excited about this sort of thing, this is something relatively new, and it's going to take some time with a lot of variables to be discussed.
Yeah, we live in a very exciting time where there's so many things being discovered and the hype machines get rolling in media and everyone sort of jumps the gun in terms of like, we need this now. Yeah. There's a level of patience that we need to have. We have to realize that, modern civilization, we're talking large cities, whatever, only been around for like 10, 12,000 years.
Yeah, that's true.
so we sort of talk about things in cycles of like 3 to 10 years, and we're like impatient, and there's all sorts of hype, and there's all sorts of people saying, no, this is never going to happen and whatever. And I sort of like to remind people in the work that I do that we are playing a long game. We do need to have those long-term visions. We do need to invest in these new advancements early on, and we need to find application together. If we do that, we're going to build something incredible.
Well, it's hard to keep an eye on the long game, though, isn't it, Nick? Because in the past, 100-200 years, there has just been so much more progress versus, the rest of those years you speak of.
I don't think the long game really existed before the last sort of like 10 to 30 years, to be honest, Jeff, because we were progressing as a human race over the last 300 years with the industrial complex. And it was like new things and growth and GDP and population and dynamics and geopolitics and globalization. And now we're sort of at this nexus of so many different things happening that it's becoming critical, because, we've got to work out, what's happening with climate change and how to be resilient, but how to apply things in ways where we do look ahead multiple generations onto the horizons ahead of us. We have to do that. But, this futures work is only around about 50 or so years old. Ironically, it started in the oil industry and they lied about what they found. But like what we found in the last sort of 10 years or so of me doing the work that I do is that more and more organizations are hiring futurists and people to look out at those further horizons, because they know that this is a long game, that suddenly the companies that they're in have to be here in 100 years time or 200 years time or 300 years time. How do they make that happen? You can't just be in cycles of 3-year planning. You've got to be in cycles of 30 to 50 to 100+ year planning. And that's tricky. So it's very exciting times right now, Jeff.
Well, with hiring futurists, though, playing the long game, but do companies, and I guess it depends on what some of those companies do, but do you feel that there is more of a hiring of futurists because of a sense of urgency that is out there, whether it's rightfully sensed or not? I mean, let's say we're talking about climate change. There is that sense of urgency.
We help people look at the unknowns ahead of us. There's an uncertainty, there's a nervousness. People need that reference point. They need to look at the evidence of things happening today that will shape our world tomorrow. And that's what we do. A lot of companies have been making money and doing okay and just been rolling along, but they're finding their limits and discipline. They're potentially going to go out of business because they're not going to even sort of anticipate what's coming next. I mean, you can see this like Blockbuster, AT&T screwed up. They never thought cellular was going to be big. They had to pay like $12 billion to get back in the game in the 90s. You had people like Kodak that basically invented the digital camera and then never really doubled down on that because it was never going to be a huge concern and it would uproot their business. And now they went bankrupt, and where are they? Yeah. Xerox and the personal computer. There's so many different companies, right?
Yeah.
So the companies that do play the long game are going to win. I mean, look at the tech companies, Microsoft, Amazon, Apple, all of these companies, they're in a more malleable world than building, construction, infrastructure, whatever. But they're in this for the long game. Their vision is to be here in 200, 300, 400 years, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's really important.
Businesses want to stick around as long as the metal that is holding up their buildings as well, these self-healing metals that we spoke of. Chief Futurist at Futurist.com, researcher, keynote speaker, author of Facing Our Futures, Nikolas Badminton. Nick, always a pleasure, my friend. Thank you.
I'll speak to you very soon, Jeff.